Okay. So now that we've all introduced each other and we have a sense of who's in the space, um, I'm actually just going to, Kaustubh, would you like to say anything before we begin?
Yeah. Yes. So before we begin, I just want to say that uh, me and Srividya, we are here just to facilitate the conversation. We are not going to teach anything to anybody. All right. So this is, as everyone says, this is a space to explore and understand and learn from each other and share and agree, disagree, whatever you want to do, right? But nobody's here to teach you anything. But we are all here to learn something from each other. All right. So keep that thing in mind, and I'll pass it on to Srividya, and you can take it forward.
Yeah, and just to add to what Kaustubh said, like Siley and Milind, I know that you both don't come from an applied theater background as such, but I think your perspectives are just as valuable because I think we could also learn a lot from what you have to say and what you observe from our conversations as well. So please, please contribute and please be a part of these discussions. And please just, as Kaustubh said, like if there's something that doesn't make sense to you, like please let's have a debate about it. Yeah, because I think
Yeah.
that's what we're here for. And Siley, you do come
So
from an education background, so it's not at all far off from applied theater practice. Yeah, actually, it's
so
very much a
what I
part of
think is
applied theater practice, I feel.
because you're not coming from this background, you can contribute to raising some good questions that probably we couldn't think of,
Yeah,
right? So just be alive, just be here, and let's start. Go on.
let's start. Yeah. So I'm going to throw open the first question, and I think it's a very obvious question considering what our first episode is all about. But what does applied theater mean to each of you? I mean, in your journey so far, and I'm looking specifically right now at Divya, Sanjeevani, Vaishali, who've just started their applied theater practice and who've just spent, I think, a year in your PG diploma course as well. What does it mean to you so far?
For me, it's a tool
Mm-hmm.
to create experiences when I'm trying uh, to create some learning experience.
Okay, so tool to create learning experiences, basically. Okay, great. Anyone else want to add on to that? Um,
For me, applied theater as such is an art form for me,
mhm.
and there are various ways in which this form can be used. Unless a form can be used to bring about a learning or an experience, it is redundant. So for me, applied theater is using this form of art to bring about the necessary learning in maybe social, or even in classrooms, or also in corporate, like we came across. So for me, it is an application. There are different ways of learning. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, applied theater is uh, an application of the theater form to bring about, like Divya said, any kind of learnings.
Okay. Okay. Great.
Yes,
Um,
for me, it's a platform
mhm.
uh, where I explore new learnings, new experiences. Uh, it's
Okay.
a platform,
Okay. And
So it's not
one of the
mandatory to
platforms.
speak only in English.
yeah,
If
you
you feel
can speak
comfortable
in
in your own
Hindi or,
language,
yeah,
please go
please
ahead,
go for it.
and someone will help to translate that.
Yes, thank you, Kostu sir.
Yeah, because I think it's important when we're having these discussions also to, be
Yes.
able to communicate our thoughts as succinctly as possible. So please go ahead and use a language that's comfortable. Um, Anyone else want to add on to that? Like Siley, from our discussions or from your understanding, what is your take on what applied theater could possibly be?
So as an theater and drama, theater educator and drama facilitator, we see teaching them elements within the body of theater or the school of theater. What I think applied theater is, from my understanding, is once you have understand these topics or subjects, forms, styles within theater, how do you pull them out of the subject and apply it outside the realm of maybe the theater classroom or the drama group? You applying it somewhere where it's not expected, that you're not doing drama, but you're applying techniques within drama to something else. And that's how I see applied theater is application of theater beyond the institution of drama or theater or art.
Okay, so how is that different? Like, I'm just trying to kind of, how is that different from what we would do in the classroom?
What I would do in the classroom. So for example, if I'm doing in classroom, I'm doing, say I'm teaching them a Lecoq theory, a Jacques Lecoq physical movement theory. I'm expecting students to create a piece of drama from it. They will go through the journey of emotional exploration and exploration of emotions through movement and narratives and stories and whatnot, 7 levels of tension. But eventually we are looking in the classroom, the outcome would be something that would be a piece of drama, piece of theater, what you would
Right.
a piece of. However, I'm thinking if I am taking Lecoq's 7 levels of tension, let's say for example, to a corporate office, and I'm doing workshop with them, I would expect them to apply it within their day to day movements or what, and think about how the tensions within their bodies work and how they, and use it for reflection. And then what can they do in certain situation? Are they panicking? Can these situations be handled at a level 1 or level 2 tension in, and do they have to maybe something like this? It's like just
Okay.
top of my head, I'm thinking how 7 levels of tension, which is
Right.
how much tension one holds in the body and does not, could be applied outside of creating, not actually to create a piece of drama or a theater piece, but to for reflection and looking into your day-to-day life.
Right. Okay.
I think that's what I feel applied theater with.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes
Right.
sense.
I think we have. Do we have Yogesh with us?
There's someone called Kathalaya Theatre. Is that Yogesh?
हेलो
Hello,
हाँ सर
Yogesh Patil.
यस सर
Acha, okay. So Yogesh is a student of NSD TI unit, which is situated in Tripura. He has graduated and he runs his own organization, Kathalaya.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So Yogesh, if you feel like you can also contribute, and if you feel like listening, not a problem.
यस सर
Okay, great.
Okay. So the question I just asked everyone, Yogesh, was what does applied theater mean to them? Right? What is applied theater according to them in their journey so far? So is there anything you'd like to say?
यस मैम एक्चुअली अप्लाइड थिएटर मुझे बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट टूल लगता है मतलब जैसे कि मैं बच्चों के साथ भी काम करता हूँ एजुकेशन में काम करता हूँ सो मुझे लगता है कि एजुकेशन के लिए बहुत अच्छा टूल अप्लाइड थिएटर हो सकता है जैसे कि ग्रेविटी हमें बतानी है बच्चों को तो ग्रेविटी कैसे हम बता सकते हैं मतलब कैसे उनको एक्सपीरियंस करवा सकते हैं मुझे लगता है कि अप्लाइड थिएटर से पॉसिबल है और इसी पर हम अभी काम कर रहे हैं मतलब लैंग्वेजेस बहुत सारी अप्लाइड थिएटर के थ्रू हम बच्चों तक पहुंचा रहे हैं लैंग्वेजेस के स्किल्स कॉम्प्रिहेंशंस रीडिंग राइटिंग एंड अंडरस्टैंडिंग कैसे हम इनहांस कर सके इसके ऊपर हम काम कर रहे हैं सो मेरे लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट टूल लगता है मुझे अप्लाइड थिएटर का यस मैम
Okay, great.
Can I ask something to him?
Yeah, sure.
यस मैम
Yeah. So you're training the teachers, or you're creating the way to teach directly to the students?
Ma'am, nowadays I'm working in a Bangalore in a school. So I'm working with a Hindi language. I'm means मैं
मतलब
हिंदी
आप खुद टीचर
लिटरेचर
हैं और
अप्लाइड.
आप स्टूडेंट्स को पढ़ा रहे हैं, लाइक दैट?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
ओके,
Okay. Okay.
थैंक
And
यू.
Milind, would you like to add anything to it? Because I know you've been talking a lot to Kaustubh and you've been kind of been a silent observer of sorts from what I understand. So what is your kind of understanding so far? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Based upon what I have known from Kaustubh and from few videos that I have seen from ATIF, my understanding is this, that applied theater is not theater at all, but it is simulating an environment in which maybe the laws of world don't apply in their entirety, or they apply in a manner in which they can be tweaked to either create a comfort zone or to create a space where people can experiment and maybe benefit from and take it outside that sandbox.
Okay. Okay. It's interesting that you said, stay in the comfort zone. What do you mean by that? Because usually we say that learning happens when you push yourself outside the comfort zone, right? But you were talking about staying in the comfort zone. So
Actually, maybe I made a mistake there. I meant where the comfort zone is a different comfort zone.
okay.
Okay, the comfort zone outside and the comfort zone inside might be two different things.
Okay.
We are creating a simulated environment. And since we are tweaking the laws that apply to the outside world,
Yeah.
the comfort zones also change, is what I intended to state.
Right. Okay. Okay. Kaustubh, would you want to say anything in response to?
Yeah, yeah. So there are two things I would like to add. First, of course, I'll share with my experience what I think applied theater is. Yeah, the way everyone says it's absolutely right. It is not creating a performance. It is not teaching acting. It is not performing in front of people. But when you take that essence of theater within for the participants, and you both gain something out of it, when you both benefit out of it, then I think it is applied theater. As a facilitator, probably you need to recognize that if it is a one-way process of teaching something through theater, I might not call it applied theater, right? As a facilitator, if I also learn from the participants, and if there is a two-way exchange, probably then only I will call it applied theater. But it take me almost a decade to come to this point. All right. So when I started, working in this space, uh, I was also doing the same thing. I was using theater to teach something, right? But later on, I realized that this one-way process doesn't work. So, as a facilitator, if I am not getting benefited, then there is a problem in my process. Okay. So now when I work, I make sure that the process flows two ways. That I also learn something, and my participants also learn something. So that is something I have realized in this maybe 10, 12 years of working in the space of applied theater. Having said that, I'm going to share a very interesting conversation I had with Helen Nicholson. She's from University of London, and probably those who are working in this space, they all know her. So in the lockdown, I had a lot of conversations with a lot of different people. And at a point, she said that, after working for 30 years in the space of applied theater, I stopped calling applied theater as applied theater. because then I started realizing that every theater we do is applied theater, right? And that took me back to, when I started thinking about being in the space, and I was scared that, we have just started in India to disseminate information about what applied theater is and how it is beneficial and where we can use it. And now she's saying that, there is no applied theater, every theater is applied. But what exactly she wanted to say is that there is a lot of change in the theater as an art form, that performing element of theater has changed and became applied. All right, and that's what she was talking about, theater in the UK, not theater in general. So we need a lot of time to go through that process and understand and realize when when our theater transforms into applied theater, when the mainstream theater transforms into applied theater. And probably that's the point where we can also start saying that no, every theater is applied theater. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, just to kind of add on to what you said there, Kaustubh, what Helen was saying was also very much from a British perspective, from a Western perspective.
Yes, very
And
much,
so,
very much.
how do we then define applied theater? And how do we then transform theater to applied theater in the Indian context?
Correct.
Right? Decolonize what applied theater, because we're still at this point looking at applied theater from a very Western perspective. But
Yes,
there's a lot more happening that we can still call applied theater that exists in India.
absolutely, and it will be always there, I think,
Yeah.
especially in the country like India, where we have huge diversity in the sense of language, culture,
Yeah.
upbringing, habits, even issues and problems.
Hmm.
So when you look
Exactly.
at the Western countries, they have similar issues, they have similar problems, they have similar language.
Yeah.
So the scope is also very, very limited.
Yeah.
But when you work, so if you want to work in Karnataka, say in the Bangalore,
Hmm.
and you just travel 2 hours from Bangalore and everything is different,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
So I think that texture of society is very important when we work in this space, and it is also important for the facilitator to understand that texture.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think some of you have worked in different contexts as well, right? Like, for example, Divya, you work with you generally work with adults, and now you work with children. And I think there is that difference in what applied theater means in these two practices for you, right? Could you kind of throw some light on that?
So I've not done many sessions, but
Hmm.
out of 3, 4 that I did with adults and 2 with children,
Hmm.
not 2 actually, it was a batch of 34 days.
Hmm.
So that was a big volume that I was handling.
Hmm.
The major difference is after any activity that we would do, like any of the TO activities or anything, one is the action part and one is the reflection part of every learning that you want to do. So in the reflection part, I found when children are doing a sharing basis the experience that they have had, it is so much of the new world types, you feel there is no repairing needed. They are so, I mean, I was amazed. I could share some videos, which is like, it was just of a leader and a follower position
Hmm.
that the sharing was around. They said they don't like to lead, also, they don't like to follow, also. 2
Follow.
children did the sharing on it. It's like we don't need a setup. I don't think anybody wants to follow me, and I don't even want to lead anyone because everybody has their own mind and everybody should just perform their best. No leader is needed.
Hmm.
It's such a liberal thought. I'd
Yeah.
never thought of this even as an adult. I mean, we are struggling. How do we rise? How do we grow above the level that we are into? How do I lead this conversation? How do I reach my point and communicate well so others receive me well and I can lead them? We adults are at different level of all this. But
Hmm.
this mindset itself will not build a resistance to the other wherever they are communicating, I
Yeah.
mean, and with adults, I feel to express and to break the resistance, that's where maximum energy would go in.
Hmm. Yeah.
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 These are the two things I really thought that how can we work more around this. So 3 areas now I'm concentrating on is how to have activities and probably a space where there could be more of expression, because sometimes only when you consciously bring about what you are thinking, you probably kind of learn from your own sharings, and
Hmm.
others also get into that group wisdom kind of thing. So
Yeah. So do you think the different approaches that you might have for adults and children would change what applied theater means to you in each of these contexts then? Or would it stay the same?
no, it's always customization, same activity, but the learning could be very different. And then what I'm trying to derive by doing that, there is an objective which you are driving,
Yeah.
that also could differ with the same activity.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can't be the same. It can't be the same. Like, even if it's the batch of age group of say 10 to 13 years, two
Hmm.
batches simultaneously if I'm taking, it could be different with both the batches.
But
I mean, one batch coming from Pune and the other batch coming from Mumbai itself changes what I have to be doing with them.
so the session changes, no doubts. But I'm asking you um, whether your uh, the way you look at applied theater itself changes. Because, so for example, when we're looking at adults and when we're looking at kids, our applied theater practice itself changes, right? In that
Yes.
sense. Because
Yes.
the way we approach it,
Because
the
if
way
I
we
don't,
look at
yeah,
it changes.
because if I don't keep it fluid in my own head, I think I'll get stuck with my own
Hmm.
class.
Hmm. Hmm.
Well, I agree with what Divya is saying.
Yeah.
I think the understanding of applied theater is very fluid,
Very fluid.
and it
Yeah.
is constantly evolving. So even after, 10 years, I'm not sure what exactly applied theater is, right? Because
Yeah.
every time I work with some new clientele, it's I get some new perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are some common words, definitely. So it is exploration, non-conventional, and a few other words are there which are very common. But the understanding of these words is very different
Very different.
and is constantly evolving,
Correct.
right? So
Yeah.
exploration 10 years before had a very different meaning for me,
Hmm.
and which has completely changed like 360 degree in past 10 years. And I'm sure that it will going to change a lot,
Hmm.
right? Because everything is changing. It's not only me, but my clientele, my society, uh, country, politics, uh, uh, society, the social atmosphere, everything is changing. So what probably you're asking is the methodologies I use are similar, but the approach
Is
towards that
different.
methods
Is
are very,
going to
very
be different.
different all the time.
Yeah.
Absolutely different.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely. Yeah. Would anyone else want to kind of add
Uh,
on to this?
I have a question for Kaustubh.
Yeah.
Uh, is learning the only benefit of applied theater?
Is learning the only benefit of applied theater?
First thing
For
it
me,
does is it brings a lot of fun and spontaneity. Learning is probably, yeah, maybe the last thing I would say, but the first thing, it makes a person more lively is what I would say. I don't know. I just jumped in,
no,
but
that's okay. That's
That's
that's what this session is
yeah. Please
Absolutely.
jump in.
Yeah. So, Milind, I just want to clarify. So, your question is for me or for the
Yeah.
participant?
No, for you. You mentioned that unless there is benefit both ways, you won't call it applied
Uh,
theater. And that
yeah.
benefit you get
So,
in
so
learning.
correct, correct. So, I look at it in a different perspective. So, for my participants, but the benefit, the learning is very, very, is a conscious effort that I take. But for me, it is not a very, conscious effort, but that learning need to be there, which I need to realize afterwards, not within the process, right? So somewhere down the line, after I finish my workshop, I need to realize, yeah, these are the certain things that, which are very different from the last workshop I did or from the last clientele, right? So I think that, so rather than learning, that sense of realization is very, very important, because that is validating my practice.
Validating.
All
His
right.
practice.
Validating my practice. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I think that that's what I mean to be learning when I say, uh, not exactly what my participants are learning about the context, about the topic I'm dealing with, but it's more about uh, introspecting my own way of doing things, my practice, developing some more understanding. Even a lot of times I make mistakes, and I realize afterwards why I did that and why this particular thing didn't work. So I think that realization is very, very important.
What is the tangible takeaway for the participants?
I think that would differ based on your objective
Uh,
as well, no?
Objective, aspiration,
Yeah.
or problem?
Yeah. I mean, if you're going into a space where there is an actual issue that you have to work with, then your tangible, I think the tangible takeaway is them actually having gotten the perspectives that you were hoping for them to get, right?
I,
Or if
I
you're,
feel the only
yeah,
I
go for
feel
it,
the
Kaushik.
only tangible benefit participants get is to get to know each other. Otherwise, otherwise everything is intangible.
Everything is.
Uh,
Intangible.
Hello.
Everything is intangible.
I want to add something.
Huh.
Yes.
Means I think learning is a very surface area of applied theater. आई थिंक अप्लाइड थिएटर का पर्पज ही इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस को बढ़ाना है. मतलब वो स्लाइड चेंजेस हम में हो जाते हैं प्रोसेस के अंदर रहते ही. सो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि वो प्रोसेस हमें बहुत सारे चेंजेस करती है. सो मुझे लर्निंग मतलब बहुत ही सरफेस एरिया लगता है. लर्निंग के अलावा मतलब लर्निंग अपने ऊपर मतलब पार्टिसिपेंट्स के पर्सपेक्टिव के ऊपर डिपेंड करता है कि वो क्या उन्होंने सीखा या नहीं सीखा या क्या किया, पर कुछ इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस जो है डेवलप होता ही है, मुझे ऐसा लगता है.
Hmm. That's, yeah.
So I would, yeah, I agree to this. I would say it's just a step forward for everybody.
Hmm.
And everybody in the class, or even me as a facilitator, what I was before the session and after the session as an applied theater facilitator will be a step forward after that session. So wherever anybody is, that conscious awareness of whatever is happening, एक step उससे आगे हो ही जाता है awareness में.
Yeah, I agree
Happens
with Divya on the
only after
awareness part
going
of
through
it.
the entire 3-4 hours of session that we've conducted. It's a step forward, and everybody are at different places, you know.
Exactly. And it's really about finding ways to make those connections, I guess. And yeah, I mean, yeah, now coming to think of it, the idea of something being tangible or intangible in the learning, I think, doesn't exist so much as finding ways to go towards, you know, finding ways to create more meaning, to create a little bit more understanding, somewhere about yourself and the world around you, is how I would see it. Like at the
She,
like at the end of our 1 second, Sanjeevni, I'll just come to you. Like when I'm working with the children that I work with, so we run 4 week long workshops where we meet once every week and we work on a particular exploration in a month. But I wouldn't ever say that at the end of a month we have found any answers. But we have come a little bit closer to having some sort of understanding on how we see this. Right? So in that sense, it's not tangible, no? Yes, there's reflection and all of that, but that's still not tangible in my understanding of it. Sorry, Sanjeevani, I cut you off there.
no. Srividya, I had one of our modules was theatre in education, where we learned how we could make classroom learnings interesting. And at times, when we make it, when the learning happens in a different way, not the way a conventional classroom is, and if that is the way the students are able to learn, their scores, there will be a definite difference in their scores if the lesson plan is planned very well and things like that, and also in their the attention that they pay in the class and things like that. So I think that part is, if we talk of tangible, so we can say that it does happen there. That can be tangible.
Saili, sorry, yeah, continue. I just wanted Saili to respond to that, if you can, Saili, but yeah, Sanjeevani, continue.
No, I'm done. I'm done.
Okay. So Saili, because you also come from the education space, yeah, and you come from a space where you do also, I mean, I know that you have done drama-based work in classrooms as well. So can you respond to what Sanjeevani said? Do you think that's tangible when we're doing drama and education in the classroom?
So when we look at tangibility, it's like, what are you expecting at the end of tangibility? Like, I'm gonna use an analogy here, which I was thinking through the conversation. Is, say, example, if you are part of a prayer group, for instance, this is something my mother and I always like spoke about. So like, you go to this prayer group every Thursday and you pray and you have meditation and you have this songs that you sing together. You devote yourself to this one particular entity, and who, whatever that may be. I'm trying to be as neutral as possible. But then what is that? Like, I would always say, do you find peace at home, or do you find peace of mind? Because you go to prayer group, but then the rest of the week you're so anxious and you're so like stressed and at times even on the edge. So if it's not, and but she's like, oh, but I am looking forward, I'm praying for the prosperity of the family and you and your brother having job and earning well. So for her, tangible outcome of her process was something, me and my brother being doing well, which was very monetary outcome. But for me, I was thinking, if you're going for this prayer meetings for 2 hours, I wanted her to have peace, which is peace of mind and just being satisfied with what we have and not being anxious when things go the way we didn't plan it. And this was always a give and take. And that's why I feel tangibility is also very relative in a way, because a parent might think in a classroom, the child getting a certain grade is a tangible outcome. But I'll be like, look at the performance they have created. There is so much introspection and reflection. And I have never seen a child think like that. Or what Divya earlier mentioned, like, I don't want to be a leader. I don't want to be a follower. We just want to move together. But then if that same child or that group of children are not scoring well on a report card, there would be maybe not always parents, but maybe school authorities, management, or your coordinator asking you why the grades are not good. And I'm like, yeah, the grades are average, but I see the children have learned a lot. Like in 1 or 2 years of teaching, I see so much growth in their emotional intelligence. So as a teacher in a classroom, constantly getting squashed between these two expectations, because I do see changes in children, their emotional intelligence, or how they're responding to things. It's like, how they respond to external stimuli. Like, I see growth. I have never not seen growth. I have always seen a step forward. For each is different, but I've always seen growth, because children are there to learn. And it's, again, I learn a lot from their perspective, and it's marvelous. But then you look at other bodies, and then they say maybe the grades are not good, or the overall average of the class is not good. But for me, I'm always happy at the end of year, because I always see children grow. And many of my kids, they are grade 12 students, so they go off to universities, and 90% of them keep in touch with me. They still, like, after 4 years, 5 years, they're like, oh miss, even though they're not pursuing theater as a degree or whatever, they are in UK, they're in US, and they're visiting these Broadway plays and theater, and they're like, miss, do you remember we spoke about this in the class? I went and saw this playwright's new play or something, and they're still connected. And to me, that's my tangibility, my tangible result outcome after it. So I do feel in education, even when you're teaching, I'm gonna take another minute, but even when you're not teaching drama, like I see with my other teachers who are teaching, say, physics or French or any other subject, I think educators feel more satisfied when that learning is, it continues with them. It doesn't stop at a report card, like I've got my grade and henceforth I don't have to worry about physics anymore. But I go forward in my life, even if I'm not formally studying physics, I go somewhere and I remember, oh, I studied this 4 years back in my high school, and that for me is tangible learning outcome.
Absolutely.
So
And
that
I agree with that. I agree with that.
yeah, because
no,
what,
I have sorry, I have
go
a very interesting theoretical equation which is coming to my mind. Like when you learn and when you apply, it becomes tangible. So when I'm learning applied theater at Central, it was absolutely intangible for me. But when I teach, when I do apply this in a workshop, that becomes tangible for me.
yeah, yeah,
But for my participants, it's again intangible. And when they apply in their real life, that becomes
then it becomes
tangible.
tangible. And
So
yeah,
I think
that,
it's
yeah.
yeah, transformation of knowledge from intangible to tangible. And I thank Milind for bringing this term out. So
Yeah. Yeah,
having
because
a
I
really
mean,
good conversation.
yeah, because this is interesting, because Sanjeevni, even when you were like, while Siley was talking about, you know, a physics teacher, a maths teacher, or whatever, uh, and what they're looking out for, and what we as theater educators also look out for, or applied theater practitioners in a TIE context as well, we are just finding ways to make learning more exciting.
Absolutely.
Right? We are
Absolutely.
not
Yes.
looking at bettering their grades in any way. That is not where we come in,
No.
Correct.
right?
No.
Because in a classroom as well, some of the tools that we use may not really excite a student, right? But we are still, but in when we're using the arts, we are giving them different entry points to engage with the exploration that we're doing, right?
Right.
Which
Right.
again makes the outcome or whatever that we're talking about intangible, because at that
Yes.
point they don't get it, they don't see it, they only see the excitement of using their bodies to learn, or using their bodies to create something, but they don't see the outcome of it tangibly until much much later.
Correct.
Wow, I love how we've come from what is applied theater to the tangibility of applied theater. Thank you so much, Milind.
So, I have a point to say in this.
Yeah.
Because the name itself is applied theater. The meaning of it is only lying behind what it is applied to. be it education or be it the corporate space.
Yeah.
So, so I'm mother of two also, and in my kids' school, there is also a drama class, and there is also a literature or a science or a maths taught with experiential learning.
Hmm.
So, my kids, or rather, parents also, because I am a class representative also, so I know the parents' voice also. Now we're talking about tangible and intangible. So, in a drama class, what is the learning is very difficult to explain. But if a water cycle, like we did in our own class, a water cycle or World War II or a Harry Potter being taught in using applied theater, and that child scoring higher just because it is imparted through all his senses, audio, visual, and kinesthetic, through applied theater. That is the tangible part, which I think can drive applied theater on a long, it can mix too well with the education system rather than we as applied theater practitioners trying to establish it as a separate entity, is what I've
Right.
understood now.
Yeah.
And just with this understanding, when I started talking to people, it's to my surprise that though I don't have any experience, but only this understanding of what could be the basis of imparting education. Like if I say a science and applied theater, if I mix it and I teach the teachers to do this, they're open to take it, as a module to run in the school.
Hmm.
It's very interesting to see that the advanced schools and the I not only IG but the SSC boards are also open for it.
But just coming back to your point about, when we integrate drama into other subjects, like you were talking about the whole Harry Potter thing, the water cycle, so on and so forth. Again, like the way I see it is, yes, it definitely plays a huge role in them understanding the concepts and making sense of the concepts and joining all those dots, but I'm still not sure about their grades becoming any better or worse, because I think these are two very different things. Because um, how a student responds to an assessment situation is very different from how they respond in a classroom situation, right? So I don't
Yeah,
think we
so
can
this is
equate
about refining the whole system. It's
correct.
not about and this is not only for the lower grades, because in my kids school I saw as a parent that in lower grades this method of imparting education was there, but after class 7 it's just theory, and
Yeah,
then it's becoming boring for children.
correct.
That's
Yeah,
where they are disliking the education system and they're getting too bored. They're like, what's the use of this? But the same child was much better when it was experiential. So I think it's the interest which will then incline them to get better at being students themselves.
of course, because at the end of the day they're learning through playing, and what better way to learn than through playing, right? So
And same
absolutely.
with corporates.
Yeah,
So competency and skill. Once the analysis of skill is done, I think it's only about making the person understand that where are you at the skill set and
correct,
how can you get better.
correct.
I think
Yeah,
that can be done. That's where we have to play the role. And that's where we can make it tangible. I can't just run a drama class and say, please come for your own emotional intelligence. Nobody will come because everybody thinks they are Shivaji. So nobody will come in a class like that.
Siley, your hand was up. I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, when we were speaking about like above 7th grade, and that's where I teach and I see this, because the teachers from PYP, like many of the drama teachers, all the drama teachers from PYP are my friends outside work as well. It's like, oh, this child was never like this child, because PYP is not testing assessment wise, it's submission project work. But once they come to higher grades, and then it just becomes a different person, and at times the child finds ways, some mechanisms to cope with this, like the assessment work, and at times they fall. And then as a drama teacher, as a theater facilitator, the thing I realized, the empathy, I just feel like this just comes attached to us, which sometimes I'm like, why don't you see what I see? Why don't you want to push? And then you run through a counselor, like what tools I can give to this child, what different accommodations can we do for them to get through assessment to with their best potential, because the framework of assessment is what is testing for them and not the content at times. And this, as a 11th 12th grade diploma program teacher, this is something that I'm always working with, because in my class, because it's a drama theater class, even though there are submissions, there are written work, I find ways to accommodate, like I can give them an oral tool which where they can speak into, and the tool writes for them and all this. But once they go into their other subjects, and it's traditional paper writing for hour and a half and 2 hours sitting in one space and all those things, and then it becomes a thing, oh, the child is or the student is wants easy subject like theater, and they don't want to do well in subjects which are like, sitting down. But then it's always a conversation why they find even the work in theater is, if not more, the same amount, why they find doable. And that's where applying those things in education comes in, like how can we engage some things that we are doing in, not in theater, but what they call in theater class का कुछ tools यहाँ पे use करना, something like that. And for me personally, that has always been a thing, because I get group 6 subject in IB drama is submission project based, and then I can, each child gets to choose their own topic, they make choice, they are not following the teacher. In fact, I am learning through their exploration every year. But that is not case with other subjects. But in other subjects they have this one textbook, and all the 25 students in the class are just trying to reach that one answer key, whatever is given,
Correct.
that's the book.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
That becomes a debate between subject teachers as well. Why is this child doing, like, my remark for the child will be like, excellent, la la la, and then the other teacher is struggling, and they say they like you more, or there are like a lot of other things. But it's the tools, and that has been a conversation that still needs to move
Yeah,
forward.
and I think it
Maybe also that teacher who is evaluating other than you is not understanding what is perspectives. And your
Perspective,
evaluation is based only on perspectives.
yeah,
exactly,
that's there, yeah.
exactly. So yeah,
Well,
I think
I
yeah,
think this discussion was there for decades, and it will be there
yeah,
in future as well. Even if there is a new education policy and they've incorporated arts and sports and everything, I think this discussion will going to be there.
yeah,
But I'm not discarding this, but I think this is quite helpful because every time there are new teachers who are discussing this issue with a new perspective.
hmm,
So when my teachers were discussing 20 years back, the perspective was altogether different, right? And after 20 years, when we are discussing this issue, the perspective and approach is absolutely different. And from both the discussions, we definitely gain something.
correct, absolutely. Because that is a way forward, no?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's the
Correct.
way forward,
Correct.
and that is applied theater too, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've come to the end of today's session. It's already going to be 7, but it's amazing. I mean, I'm loving the conversations happening, and once again, we've not reached a conclusion as to what applied theater means, or, we've not come to a solid we've not really defined applied theater, but I think that's what it is. It's a very dynamic, um, it's something that is so dynamic that it's constantly changing for each of us at every moment. And I think it's important that we keep redefining it for ourselves as we move along, because that's how our practice also keeps developing. So we will be having more conversations where today, I think one thing that came out as well when Saili was talking to me was, how do we value our work? How do we tell other people what we do? Those are
Correct. That's a big
that's a,
struggle.
Yeah, that's a big one. And so we're really hoping that we're able to kind of have these conversations every month. But before we leave, I just want to know whether this timing works for you. A Saturday, 6 to 7 p.m. Does it work for everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it does.
For
Yes.
you. Okay, great. So then in which case, Kaustubh, we freeze one Saturday a month.
Right.
Yeah, where
Yeah.
we do this from 6 to 7 p.m. Perfect. Um,
Absolutely. And I request all that, we have made a group. So we'll be putting the invitation to different groups as well. Those who are interested, they can join the WhatsApp group. So invitation and the meeting link will come to that group, and we can immediately join. It is not restricted to, only the applied theater practitioners or people coming from theater or education. It is absolutely open for anybody who wants to learn and who wants to contribute.
yeah, so this is
I'm
really a
done.
space. Yeah. No, this is really a space where we can just kind of discuss, debate, figure things out, and hopefully at some point also share practice so that we, also learn from each other, which is really what I'm hoping we get to do with this space.
Are we tentatively saying it will be the first Saturday of every month?
We can book that down actually, no, Kastur? Because we are on the first Saturday of July.
We can. We can.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we'll then block it to first Saturday of every
Well,
month.
last week we were at the last Saturday of the month, but
Oh, I missed it, I guess.
Yeah, no, there was a
no, it's
miscommunication
okay. It's
from
that time.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what we did was we
Only
just
me,
postponed.
Srividya, and Milid was there.
Yeah, so we
Yeah,
decided to postpone it to today. So you didn't miss anything, don't
but
worry.
that's okay. We can
Yeah.
freeze the first Saturday every
Yeah.
month.
So that we can plan other things.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.
And see you all next month for more conversations. And
See you all.
yeah.